Pizza presents SCP. The Steve Dangle Podcast with your hosts, Steve Dangle and Adam Wilde.
Projected lines. Leafs versus Sabres. Hyman, Tavares, Matthews, Marlowe.
Hyman, Tavares, Marner.
Matthews, Kapanen, Lindholm, Kadri, Brown, Ennis, Gauthier, Janssen.
That's Cappy was like, in what world does Nazem Kadri have worse line mates than Freddie Gauthier? And I think that's mean. Listen.
Man.
It's a good lineup.
Poor Connor Brown.
But it's going to get better.
It is going to get better. We don't know when William Nylander plays, but it will not be tonight against Buffalo. And it's too bad because Buffalo's looking pretty damn good right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough first game back, though. That's a smart move.
And I wonder too, like the first team that gets him back, like if I'm William Nylander, I'm not sure I want to start against Boston my first game because you know Brad Marchand's going to give you like a $6.5 million butt end to the stick to the throat. Yeah.
Slew foot. Well, and you attack him as well. Like that line is already going to draw a lot of attention because of Austin Matthews, but like that's a potential vulnerable spot, right?
Yeah.
I don't care how naturally gifted the guy is. Is his win there? Is he going to be rusty?
Well, even Matthews said, and Matthews went through training camp. He's like, after my first period back, he scored. He's like, I felt like crap.
The Leafs were terrible for the first 3.5 games. I still remember. Imagine the Leafs win the Cup this year. In the first period of the third game of the season against Chicago, I just went, this team looks awful. Because they did. Mm-hmm. They did. They looked terrible.
And then they looked even worse against the Senators the next game.
Was that the next game?
They lost they lost that game that Saturday night against Ottawa.
I don't think it was the next game.
No, I think the Sens were game 2.
Yeah.
That's why they looked terrible.
Oh,
yeah.
Because I was at the Habs game, the first game, where they looked terrible but won. Mm-hmm. And Tavares is a Leaf, and so is Matthews. And then they lost to the Sens the next night, and this is when we still thought the Sens were going to finish with 25 points in the standings.
Negative 25.
Yeah, seriously. And then they get off to the terrible start against Chicago. I'm like, I'm sorry. I thought they might struggle to start the season, but what the hell is this team? And now they're 19-8.
Yeah. Can I make a prediction?
Please.
Yes.
William Nylander scores, plays in his first game
tonight.
Next Tuesday versus Carolina. Scores that game against Curtis McElhinney.
Wow.
Whoa. I like that too. And then Carolina will be like, we should have given them Brett Pesce and Brown in a second. I have no idea.
And McElhinney back.
and then it's going to be
McElhinney.
Glad you didn't trade him to the Hurricanes. This proves it.
Yeah.
Hey, prepare for this to be super annoying. Here, I'm going to make a prediction.
Please.
We've been given the Islanders guff for having a really high PDO.
We've been yucking their yum. That's for sure.
Yeah, a little bit. They've been yumming a high shooting percentage and save percentage.
Sure have. Delicious.
No more.
No more.
When their PDO comes crashing down, but the Leafs have a really high one too.
Oh. Okay.
I learned that from Charting Hockey.
Interesting.
Sean Tierney.
I don't know who that is. I'm kidding. I know exactly.
I was like, you mentioned him every episode.
Okay, so William Nylander contract.
This is our first one.
6 years, 41.77 million or something like that.
I don't care.
But regardless,
the number that matters is
6.9.
a nice one. 6.9.
Now, when you looked at that contract, because we had a bit of a heads up, we had a 5-minute heads up before it broke that it was happening.
Yes.
And my initial thought was first off, I didn't believe the person, but second, when you think about.
Did.
Well, I wasn't like.
Anyway.
I was like, I thought that they were messing with us because they would be the kind to mess with us. But anyway, I want to know from you, what was your initial reaction? Forget all the other stuff about being relieved and whatever. What's your reaction to the number they got him at?
I'm happy that I remember a few weeks ago I was like, listen, just sign him for 7, which they basically did. But just sign him, even 7 point something. It's fine. Just get it done. Get the deal done. So the fact that
they were able to get Nylander for under 7 is good.
But they didn't. This contract is $7.5 million.
2.5. It's just 2.5. Isn't it 7?
No, it's 45 divided by 6.
What does it count against the cap?
No, but that's the thing.
But that's all I care about.
No, but so they couldn't get him under 7 unless they had done this whole shenanigans.
That's fine.
Until December 1st.
That's not my money. I don't care. If they were 8-18, I'd care. I don't care how much money the Leafs spend. Don't give a damn.
45 divided by 6 is 7.5.
True.
The cap hit is $7.5 million. They didn't sign him for under 7. No, the cap hit reality.
What does the cap say?
The cap hit is 6.9
there
going
you go.
forward.
There you go. That's all I care about.
Yeah,
okay.
Listen, I went to 6 Leafs games last year, drank at all of them. I've paid for half of Nylander's contract. Partly because I was worried about this contract.
Yeah.
It's under 7 against the cap. That's all that matters.
That's all. Because really, it's about what it fits under the cap. Who cares how much they're actually paying?
No,
him?
but so
not every team has that luxury. The Leafs
whole
do.
waiting to December 1st was completely necessary.
Unnecessary or necessary?
Necessary.
Yeah, I was annoyed because when they tweeted when it was announced, well, it's $6.9 million. I'm like, I know, I know. Mark Savard called it
On this podcast, I'm going to pretend like he called it on this podcast.
Well, he texted you during the podcast, so that helps. That
And
helps.
he confirmed it. It's 6.9.
That's all I care about. All I care about. I don't care about the dollar amount. And they survived, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
They survived that Nylanderless
Stretch, they're off to their best start since 1934, proving that Nylander is only their 7th best player.
Well, we'll get into that. We're going
Proving!
to getting into that. Now, the initial relief and that sort of I don't know about you, but I feel like, and I've said this before, I think that the season, the start that they've had, which is the best start we've seen in our lifetime, well, actually in the last couple, maybe 3-4 generations that we've seen.
It's bananas.
It's insane, and none of it's not getting any attention.
Their
and
best start since Don Cherry was born.
There you go.
The year Don Cherry was
1934.
Wow.
It's a long time ago.
And that's when the world was a better place, according to Don Cherry.
You know, when people, it's... come on, let's go. Come on, let's go.
Let's go. We don't got a lot of time.
Okay, so, obviously I thought it was funny because as soon as that contract came out, I looked at it, I'm like, well, how can anyone criticize that? That's pretty good. And I looked,
Easy, said everyone.
and I looked at, because we've talked about this before. Cap's going up to $83 million, assuming there is no lockout or work stoppage. I expect the cap to go up about $3.5 million just about every year. You might have a year where it goes up 2, but ultimately most of the time it's going to go about 3 because that's what it's been. That's what it's been doing. So you can really own past predictors, future behaviors, right? So in about 3 years they're going to be up to $90 million. And I look at Nylander's deal and I think this deal midway through is going to look, if he projects to be what it will be a steal.
Forget project. A consistent 60-point player.
In 3 years. Man, guys like Evander Kane, James Van Riemsdyk, Paul Stastny, I think, is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I brought him up when talking about Nazem Kadri. Nazem Kadri makes $4.5 million. If he hits unrestricted free agency, do you think he gets out of bed for less than $7 million?
No.
No. Paul Stastny gets 6.5, 3 years, 6.5. Nylander, a consistent 60-point player, should be able to ask for what Nylander's getting minimum.
A guy that I look at, now given this was a different situation because he was an unrestricted free agent when Boston signed him, but David Backes, I think, is a perfect example of a 60-point player on average. He hasn't been lately, but
back in the day,
when healthy, in his prime, 60.
Backus in the day.
But he was paid 2.5-3 years ago, $6 million a year
as a
UFA to be a 50 to 60 point player. That's already what the cost is. That's the market value 3 years ago. So to get him at this deal, I think the Leafs gave up something. I think Nylander gave up something. And it's like, okay, well, you met in the middle. The Leafs started at 6, you started at 8, you met in the middle.
Now here's the problem, and well, not the problem, but this year, I really think they should go for it. They have the space. They're one of the best teams in the league. Go for it. The problem is next year you're going to need young, cheap players because even though a lot of people have been banging the drum that it's doable, it's going to be tight. It's going to be real tight. What no one's talking about is how I don't think the Leafs are going to trade Marleau. I just don't think it's going to happen. But once he's off the books,
they're laughing.
Oh, you're in trouble.
They're laughing. They can make.
I'm
They can be a big
the
player.
rest of the league. oh, you've been naughty and you're in trouble. Listen, here's Ian Tulloch with his roster prediction for next year. And I was in the middle of doing my own, and I'm like, you've already done the work. I had Kapanen at 3.5. I had Johnsson at 2. He's got Kapanen at 3.5 and Johnsson at 2.5. So here's his lineup prediction for next year. Andreas Johnsson, 2.5 million, with Austin Matthews making 12, Nylander 6.9. So the line is Johnsson, Matthews, Nylander. Listen, I don't need to tell you the dollar amounts. Here's the lineup, and it's under 83 million. It's about 82.2. Johnsson, Matthews, Nylander. Hyman, Tavares, Marner. Marleau, Kadri, Kapanen. Grundstrom, Adam Brooks, which I disagree with, but whatever. And veteran PTO at 700 grand. Can't be done. Yes, it can. Happens every year. Tyler Ennis is one of them. Here's their defense, and I think this is a bit of a problem. Morgan Riley, Mark Pysyk. So this involves a couple trades. He traded Connor Brown and he traded Nikita Zaitsev. There's going to be moves, but this is obviously a fantasy scenario. Morgan Riley with Mark Pysyk, Travis Dermott with Nick Jensen, Calle Rosen with Timothy Liljegren. Hey, okay, and Anderson Sparks. He gave Sparks a raise to $1 million, which is not a ton. Scratches: Gauthier, Marincin, Hall. So it's not.
Of course, he kept Marincin.
Of course.
Of course.
It's not a terribly different and Hall. It's not a terribly different team, but there's still struggles on D.
Well, and let's assume it goes from 83 million to 86 million.
And the fourth line is suspect, but
83 million to 86 million. By the way, why wouldn't you? Part Lindholm hasn't been bad. People need to stop. Like he's a. Come on.
Well,
come on with that. Why the hate on him?
Lindholm and Ozhiganov are tougher contracts to predict because they're depth, but they're also veterans, and it's going to maybe take some money to keep them, but they might not deserve it, and maybe you just cut bait. I don't know. The yada, yada, yada of it all. I like Lindholm.
I do too.
More than most
I like Ozhiganov too. I think he's been playing great.
Totally.
Given what his listen, is he a top 4 guy? No, but given what his skill is, and given the way we were talking about Roman Polak last year, we don't talk about Igor Ozhiganov, and in that role, you don't want to talk about Igor Ozhiganov.
I like him just fine. And by the way, in case any of you are wondering, Nathan Horton is on LTIR in this scenario, but it can be done, and you can still put together a pretty good team and not lose a ton of assets. So for everyone saying good luck. By the way, Matthews in this scenario, this is an important part, is making 12. Marner's making 9. So 21 combined $1 million. How far off from the truth is that going to be?
I don't think it's that far.
I'm just not so quick to get rid of Zaitsev or Ozhiganov.
I think that Zaitsev will be traded. I think that's the one thing we do know is that Nikita Zaitsev has value. And you might laugh as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan.
2 other NHL teams.
Yeah. Right-handed defenseman, so automatically you're paying more. And I have to tell you, $4 million
4.5. I thought it was 4.
is about what you're paying.
Yeah, so
It's
I think
about
we
what
have
people are
one.
Points.
We have one, so pay him.
Well, he played really well when he was on the power play. So a team that could use a power, like the Oilers, would be great for Nikita Zaitsev because he'd have to play on the power play.
I see what you're doing.
I'm just calling.
I
what
like it.
What are you trying to trade him to get?
I don't think you're gonna. I don't know what you're gonna get. I think it's one of those things where you have to be confident. If you are trading Nikita Zaitsev, you have to be confident that one of Sandin or Liljegren ready to step in.
Yeah.
And of course, you want them to step in before the end of the regular season, which will be very hard to do because unless there's an injury, Ozhiganov's kind of got that spot on lock.
Sandin looks real good.
Sure does. So,
I'm excited to watch both Sandin and Liljegren at the World Juniors.
Me too.
They both went to Sweden.
So I think, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Let's just enjoy this ride. But I definitely think the Leafs are going to be fine. And when you look at what I was going to say originally, cap 83 next year. Let's say for argument's sakes, it's 85 the year after. Patrick Marleau makes how much?
6.25.
Okay. So you got 6.25 off the books plus a $2 million raise on the cap.
Yeah, and you're going to have guys.
That's $8.5 million.
You're going to have Dermott.
People. Yep.
You're going to have maybe you bridge a guy. It's manageable. It's manageable. If you can manage next year, I think every year after that is going to be easy. This is why you fight so hard to lock Nylander down. Once Matthews and Marner are done, you have your core.
Yeah.
Forever. basically. Not
And
forever,
it's those,
but for over half a decade.
And Core plus Morgan Riley, who's up in 3 years after this one.
I would say Corgan Riley, because I would call him part of it.
But wouldn't you say, like, those are the 5 guys? Tavares, Nylander, Marner, Matthews, Riley.
All the guys
Anderson.
on the
And Anderson, I guess, too.
Yeah, all the guys on the star on my Christmas tree. I would say, and yeah, Anderson is among them. And man, by the way, Anderson, $5 million. Yeah, that's a pretty good deal.
Pretty good steal.
Pretty
Now,
good deal.
when I was standing in the mall waiting for Caprice to come out of the candle shop that was so busy, looked like a mosh pit.
Yankee Candle?
No, it was Bath and Body Works.
Great.
Anyway, so I'm standing there and I'm looking at the reaction to the contract, and everybody's pretty positive about it. And then, of course, watch Hockey Night in Canada. And
I was crapping my pants, Adam.
The
because I was 5 minutes till there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, because I was hosting Hockey Central Saturday.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God, I forgot.
Sorry, not to cut off your story.
No, but I don't know if you caught it, but I'm sure you caught Brian Burke's rant, and I'm sure you caught Don Cherry's rant.
No, well, because we're doing the show, right? So we're watching everything with
the rant was
sound
posted. So what's interesting about...
Do you want to play it, and then I'll just insert it?
Yeah, I've heard... He said that Nylander was the 7th best player. Mm-hmm. And that's all I've heard.
And that the Leafs were not a contender.
Okay, Brian.
You know what? Jesse will pull it up. I'm going to let you watch it, because I think it's important that you watch it, and then we're going to discuss it.
My objection to the Nylander deal is twofold. One, he's the 6th best player on the team. These guys are all much closer to the top of their team, if not number 1, or number 2, or number 3 at worst. He's the 6th best, arguably the 7th best player on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they paid him all this money. I also think if they were going to throw this much money at him, they should have done it in August and not had him miss training camp. If you're going to give away the farm like this, do it early and get him in camp.
So you feel William Nylander won this standoff? Essentially, it was done with 5 minutes left.
I do believe he did. And also, I think the notion that you'll put more money on the table late, that's a lesson that the other agents for these other players are going to learn is with Toronto, all you have to do is hold out and they'll up the ante. And that's dangerous ground, Boyd.
We just saw some incredible names on that list, and Western Canadian fans, when you look at the likes of Tkachuk and you look at Besser, et cetera, what are the other GMs now feeling when they see the Nylander deal fall into place?
Panic. The numbers have changed now, and just this afternoon, all the numbers changed on all these guys. So they were hoping this would come in with a 6. It came in much higher. Their numbers, they were thinking, well, if he's the 6th best player, I might have to start with a 7.5 or an 8, and it's going to start with an 8 now and go up from there.
So, seeing that for the first time.
I don't understand. First of all, what he's so angry about.
You know what? He's mad all the time, though. That's the weird part. Is like it's interesting.
He's like the Hulk.
You
That's
get
the thing. I'm always angry.
He seemed to be not understanding. Now, I'll give him this. The news was pretty fresh at this point, so I'm not sure all the nuance had come out yet. Although
that's a tough thing, right?
Yeah,
it is. I'm learning.
The thing is that of course the whole point of a negotiation is you have to kind of come up at the end, and Brian knows that.
Yeah.
And
what came out from Frank Saravalli was that the Leafs came in with a number that started at 5 or started with 5.
Oh wow!
What? That's as ludicrous as Nylander starting with 8.
Yes.
They both went in knowing that was never going to happen.
Exactly. And that's the weird part about it is that he seems and I'm curious.
That's one of the best contracts in the National Hockey League if it happens.
I'm curious about
which means it's a ripoff.
I'm curious about for Brian who he expects is better than Nylander on this team.
Oh, easy. Tavares, Matthews,
Marner.
There's
hold on, what puts him in 7th?
If you
then
count,
you could argue Riley and Anderson.
Okay.
If you count the guys,
Riley, Anderson, Gardner?
He's
maybe?
6 if you count guys who aren't forwards. Because you go Tavares, Matthews, Marner, Riley, Anderson, Nylander. 6. So there you go.
You cannot compare a goalie to a skater.
But he said he's the 7th best player on the team.
He's talking about Riley.
Percentages.
He's talking about guys that have 3 of those guys have well over 400 games of NHL experience. Are you out of your mind? This guy's 21.
Riley signed his deal, I think, when he was 22. And Kadri signed his deal when he was, I want to say, 24, but still an RFA. Listen, Nylander is getting market value.
Yes.
Guys who produce like Nylander at his age and are RFAs make that money. So
it's almost the exact same percentage that Pasternak got, by the way.
Pretty much.
And their stats.
It's a slight increase on Pasternak.
And
it's
the percentage.
it's almost like a 1 year increase on Pasternak.
Almost like the cap went up over that 1 year, and the percentage of cap is about the same.
It's almost like it's the same. It's the bloody same. And Pasternak, when he signed that deal, wasn't Pasternak. He wasn't. You didn't know he was this good. No one did. Come on, stop. He just wasn't Pasternak yet. If Nylander is current Nylander over the course of this deal, it's a win. If he's better, you're in trouble. You're in so much trouble. Now, the argument that I'm sure Burke is making and some other people are making is that money would be better spent elsewhere. I got time for that argument. I have time for it.
But he didn't make that argument. He said they're not a contender, and he said he's the seventh.
Later
on in the broadcast he said not a contender.
I was about to say. I was waiting for that.
No, he. That was just
blasphemous, Adam.
Honestly, and even James Myrtle had it in his article. He's like, "What do you mean not a contender? What's he talking about?" And this is the thing.
Listen, I have a hard time believing that Decor can win 4 rounds or 2.
Well, would you have said the same thing with Ron Hainsey and Brian Dumoulin?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's why we still talk about it.
Exactly.
You know?
But my point in saying
can't
this
win a cup with Antti Niemi
is that it is utter, and I tweeted this, it's utter lunacy. That and James nailed it. I read his article at 4 a.m. today because I was wide awake for some reason, and and he said it seems like sour grapes, and that's what it seems like. In Brian's case, it seems a little bit like he's upset that he's not the guy. And I have to tell you, like to me, it doesn't look, and I don't think they bring Brian Burke in to be fair and balanced. And I would say this to him: this does not seem like a measured or reasonable approach. And that's not an insult to Brian. It just seems like first off, he seems ticked off about something. And then second, it's like, well, I don't understand what the anger is.
What I got from that is he was trying
Trying to give almost like apprenticeship sort of advice to Kyle Dubas.
the just turned 33-year-old GM of the Leafs, and he's been in the game for, is Burke double that age?
Yeah.
Like, he's probably close to it. He's been in the game for a very long time.
Guy was GM of the Whalers.
Mm-hmm.
Guy was GM of a team that doesn't exist anymore. When Dubas was a kid. Probably saying, listen, this is early in your tenure. You're setting a bad precedent. I understood what he was saying. I just disagree. Listen, if you think Nylander's making too much, of course you're going to feel this way. But to me, my personal opinion, he's not making too much. Nylander's making what Nylander should be making.
And then Don Cherry later on in the broadcast talked about, I forget even what he said, but it was along those same lines. Oh, you can't do that. Setting a bad precedent with Matthews and Marner. You know what would have set a bad precedent with Matthews and Marner? Not getting him signed.
Or trading him.
You think Austin Matthews, who is watching, and I think people make a really good point about this. You may not agree, but do you think that Austin Matthews, looking at Mitch Marner and John Tavares when he was sitting on his couch for a month, rehabbing his shoulder, do you think, maybe he wasn't at the couch, maybe he was at the games, but
on the bike,
whatever. Do you think he enjoyed going, my star winger isn't here? And this is the thing. Like, of course, you know what Matthews is going to be like? I believe in this process now. Marner, I believe in this process now.
The Kyle Bukauskas interview? Have you texted Willie since he signed? And Matthews just goes, yeah. and skates away with this huge smile on his face. Now, some of you might think it's a nefarious smile, like, I'm going to ask for all of the money, ha ha ha. Or it's,
I got my boy's coming back. My boy's
and we're
coming back.
Be sick, and everyone's in so much trouble.
Well, and that's the thing, and I guess it seemed a bit odd for Brian because I think he's been very, very good on the broadcast. I think he's been a phenomenal broadcaster since well before he was a broadcaster. Every time you put that guy on TV, people watch, and that's why he's so great. But in that particular take, that just seemed way off balance. It was way. I expect that from Don Cherry. I don't expect that from Brian Burke.
Can I throw something out there for maybe I'm giving away government secrets and I shouldn't be doing this? For everyone who's not a Leafs fan listening to this right now, I want you to consider this. I think some people feel pressure. Some people in media feel pressure to slam the Leafs.
Sure. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, the Toronto media all they do, they're so biased. Yeah, They're not stupid. They
ever-
know
you ever-
you say that.
You ever read a Steve Simmons piece?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Seriously.
It's a walk in the
Did you
park
read
here.
Damian Cox's recent piece, which
Yeah.
is basically lambastes the Leafs and Nylander?
The Toronto media is so biased towards the Leafs, and it's also the reason players won't sign here. What? I suppose both things can be true. But then you need to acknowledge that the media is a bunch of different people, which some people are also not willing to do. I believe there's some pressure for some people to slam the Leafs a little bit.
Nick,
I don't know if that's what happened here, but maybe.
I was funny to watch the headline segment because Kyprios on a panel with Burke before the game said, Brian hated the deal. Nick likes the deal, but he's like, but this is a tradable contract because in 7 months they're paying him most of the contract, and then for the rest of the deal they only owe him about $25 million in actual dollars.
That's also just good broadcasting because now you have a guy on the panel who hates it and likes it.
And Kipper, it was interesting because Kipper thought, Elliot Friedman put his line in the sand. He said, I think this will be Nylander's last year in a Leafs jersey last week.
That was weird.
Then Kipper who's been saying forever that one of Marner or Nylander was going to go. Last year he was trying to trade Marner. This year it was Nylander.
Yeah.
And then CJ comes on the panel and goes, no, none of that. He actually came out, and I have to give him a lot of respect because
confusing as hell.
It's tough in that position too. Imagine you're sitting between the force of a personality that Nick Kyprios is, and a guy like Elliot Friedman, who is the insider, the guy around the league. It's him and Bob McKenzie.
CJ's no slouch.
CJ is absolutely no slouch, but he goes on that panel and he goes, actually, I don't believe what any of these guys are saying. What I believe is that they want to keep him. The whole point was to keep him. And if you listen into what Kyle Dubas's remarks were yesterday when they actually brought William in and had him talking, was we're not in the business. I believe the quote was, we're not in the business of not having exceptional young players. And
Nylander's our 7th best player. Cool.
Wow.
Wow.
And somebody tweeted this. They're like, Brian Burke says Nylander's their 7th best player, when in his era, Tim Connolly was their 7th best player.
Man, someone posted.
You want to talk about a deal you want to hate?
Someone posted it was Burke is criticizing Dubas for this signing. Here's some of his. And they just posted the players' faces. And there were a couple where I'm like, I don't know who that is. I don't know who that human being is. And it took me a second. I'm like, oh, that's Tim Connolly.
James Myrtle, in that, you got to read his recent piece from today. He says in it, he said Mike Komisarek took up a higher cap percentage than Nylander is now.
Yeah, it was 4 point some, and
If with inflation, whatever, it would have been a little over 6.
On the 2014-2015 Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, but really, it was the Frankenberg team.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, it's the Frankenberg.
Do you want to go back a year?
Yeah, Burke, by the way, is a guy we've not protected,
He
defended a bunch of times on the
deserves
show.
credit for the Shen trade, the Shen draft, really. Kadri, Gardner, Riley, Levo, sure.
Sparks.
He deserves credit.
11-12.
Oh, you want 11-12?
Yeah.
I mean, the Leafs' best 2 defensemen are Brian Burke people. He picked those guys up. He deserves that.
We laughed then. Morgan Riley, we would have picked him first. Not far off. That was a rough draft, man.
7th in points on the 11-12 Toronto Maple Leafs is Tim Connolly with 36 points.
I think that was his last full year, right? Because he got fired right as the lockout ended.
Burke, yeah.
Yeah.
Team. And I still think
it's hard to begrudge where the Leafs are now, obviously, but Burke was not done with that team.
No. So you'll never know what Brian Burke was going to do with the team. He certainly would have never signed Clarkson into that deal and would have never bought out Grabowski that way.
He made mistakes.
Yeah.
On December 31st, 2011, who did the Toronto Maple Leafs play?
December 31st, 2011. I was working at Leafs TV. The New Year's Eve, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm wrong, but I'll say Boston.
The Winnipeg.
Yeah. Was that? Oh, that would have been Winnipeg's first year back.
It would have been 2011, yeah.
Yeah. The Leafs must have lost.
They did lose.
Yeah,
as well as the score.
I want to.
Regulation loss?
Yeah, the Jets spanked the Leafs for the first while they were back.
It was in Winnipeg.
Oh, they got murdered one night, 7-1.
That is not the 7-1 game. It was
This is amazing.
3-2 loss.
Oh,
Yeah.
You probably remember that one too. I think I was in
No.
Calgary. Had to have been.
if it was in 2011, yeah. Who
Now,
would have been in nets? Jonas Gustafsson, Vesa
They have the
Toskala.
box. No, they don't have the box.
No.
Jaguar?
Ooh, could have
Was
been
that post Jaguar? I can't remember.
confirm or deny. So.
No.
Now, Kyle-
Not yet, I don't think.
Kyle Dubas has promised that he won't trade William Nylander. He promised him. He said it in front of the media.
As long as I'm GM. And to quote Nick Alberga of Hockey Central Saturday fame, DeMar DeRozan says hi.
Exactly. DeMar DeRozan still has loyalty tattooed on his hand.
Yeah, by the way, Masai Ujiri was a guy that Kyle Dubas called in the Tavares negotiations. Anyway,
And I mean, you look at that the Raptors trade. They got the 2 better players of the 4 players. That was an unbelievable move by Masai
DeMar's
Ujiri.
been doing really well.
Sure, but
I mean, so have the Raptors.
But it's also sports, and everybody can be traded at any time as long as you don't have a no movement clause.
If Nylander continues to be a great player for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm pretty confident he won't get traded.
Well, why? That question is, and I think that's a pretty easy statement for Kyle Dubas to make, because people are like, "Oh, he's painting himself into a corner." Well, first off, no, he can trade him whenever he wants.
Yeah, you can trade him tomorrow.
Yeah, but the question for me is why? You have to have a reason. So unless you're getting a guy like, if let's say Nylander's a top 30 player in the NHL, the way DeRozan is top 30 NBA player, right? Top 30, you'd say, maybe even
Not
top.
according to what was it, Sports Illustrated that one year?
Okay, well, whatever.
He is.
And so, but then they traded a top 30 guy for a top 3 guy.
Pretty good.
Like Kawhi
Who
Leonard.
might not stay.
Who might
and
not
that
stay.
was the rub.
Well, okay, but so what? Look at how great they are right now.
Yeah.
Sometimes
but
sports
at the
is
time,
about sports
you
is
and I
about the
went on
now.
the radio after that, and it was hard to say so what at the time.
Yes.
It was hard to say. Now they're first place, and I'm like, yeah, so what? it's a lot easier today than it was
If
in
they were
July
losing,
or whatever it was.
If they were losing, that trade looks completely different. But they look amazing. And, as a GM, you have to put yourself out there sometimes. I just think people are going, oh, well, Kyle said this, Kyle said that. Well, people say stuff all the time. I'm inclined to trust him because I don't see any reason why. Like, how does it benefit the Leafs to trade William Nylander? It doesn't. So, and does it benefit the Leafs to do anything but sign Marner and Matthews? No. So they will.
Well, and what they're also going with is a good yes instead of a good maybe. If they trade Nylander for, let's say, a right-handed defenseman, which is exactly what they need or whatever, will they work out? Maybe. And they could be good. Maybe. Nylander, we know he's good. We know he's good with this team. So the Raptors went away from the maybe, right?
Yep.
And so they took a huge risk. But if you have a really, really good player, and you can't get him for a even better player on paper, who's going to give you a better defense? Who's going to give you a player who's a better defenseman than Nylander is a winger in the NHL? No one.
The Hurricanes.
And the Hurricanes. Also, the answer is not the Hurricanes because all the packages I saw were trash.
They were terrible.
No.
Here's a mediocre defenseman and a pick. No thanks.
Philadelphia.
I rarely even saw a package that gave me pause.
The only one that actually gave me was, first off, the Flyers are never giving up Provorov, so that would never have happened. But the Parayko in St. Louis, that was the first one where I was like, yeah, he's pretty freaking good. That guy's going to be an Olympian, man, on Team Canada. Right-handed shot, defenseman, Olympian, sure.
It doesn't
Okay, we'll talk.
necessarily mean anything.
Now-
Ryan McCabe was an Olympian, man.
Okay.
The imaginary Provorov packages did look good, though.
They did.
You would do that.
Yes.
But-
Well, I think it started with this article that said, I think it was Simmons and Goss to spare, and we went, how about Simmons Provorov?
Yeah.
And then now
We
we're
did
talking.
sit here and say we would do that.
Yeah.
For sure. Now, I want
said
to
it.
bring something up.
Consider it.
Everybody says the Leafs defense is bad, and yes, their PDO might be a little bit high, but their goal differential is the best in the NHL, plus 28, and their
Anderson's
save
been
percentage
disgusting.
is 923. They are a top 5 goals for team and a top 5 goals against team.
It's an interesting
the
little
top-
mix there at the top.
Yeah,
For save
Anaheim
percentage.
922, and the only reason
Anaheim's sitting in like second with a minus 13 goal differential or something.
and they're
If you have
hot, and
it
they're
in front of
top, one of the top teams in the NHL in save percentage.
you. Yeah, that's why they can get away
good
with
God,
that.
John
crazy
Gibson
goal
is gonna win the
differential.
Ducks
Vezina.
fans, I'm sure you don't need me to say it, but God, is this eerie? God, is this eerily similar? Like you are less than a month away from acquiring Peter Holland as your number one center. It is creepy. This reminds me of Randy with the Leafs.
It's like our first full year with the podcast. I think that was the year.
That was fun. Hey, speaking of the Ducks, is the Daniel Sprong trade?
Well, we're not. No.
We're not there yet?
No,
Okay.
we haven't even talked about the Levo trade.
I have thoughts.
Come on,
All right.
come on.
Yeah.
Levo first.
Yeah. And now that we're done with the Nylander talk, sort of, like...
Can we leave the Marner and Matthews shit to the side?
Yeah,
for a
we
bit?
can leave the Marner and Matthew shit for a while. And everyone who doesn't care about the Nylander talk, we're done for now. There you go.
Well, yeah, we're done for the next 6 years. So
Hopefully. Well, I mean, and the next time we talk about William Nylander, we're probably going to talk about, okay, when's he going to play?
Mm-hmm.
But then, after that, it's just him on the ice. Isn't that so fun?
so great.
Final question on the Nylander stuff.
Let's
Nylander and Matthews and Marner and all that. Does it, I don't know, bother, discourage, disappoint, do you look poorly that it's only a hockey problem? That this sort of talk only happens amongst fans in the NHL? Because NFL doesn't matter. Cut the guy. Signed whatever. Yeah. NBA, it's a cap leave, but it's a soft cap. Plus, you can't trade players like you can. If you sign a guy, you can always buy him out. Look at Melo. Sign him to a crazy deal.
Yeah.
Just get rid of him. Baseball.
And do buyouts count against the cap?
They do,
But I
but
think
it's
for
in
that
a
season
funny
only,
way.
right?
And
Yeah.
it's soft.
And it's soft. Plus, trades can't happen as easily because it has to be contract for contract. You can't trade a guy who's not within, I think, like 10% of the other deal that's coming back. Like the overall money has to be so similar. So it's not a problem NBA fans worry about their teams. Baseball, no cap. Guys really sign for whatever.
It bothers, I mean, it's less fun, for sure, but the NHL is just not in the same stratosphere as those leagues.
They can't afford those things.
And I'm sure the players fought against it in 2 lockouts and lost both times, right? So it is what it is. And in terms of it ever changing, that ship has sailed. I don't even think about it. It's less fun. It's exciting that in the NBA, stars move around all the time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Problems are so much easier to solve. You got to be a little cunning in hockey, which a lot of teams aren't. So it makes for a lot of that's
it more
that's
fun?
where the fun is made up.
Okay.
The fun is made up by the fact that you need to be smarter, and I just feel like teams aren't. They're just not.
Well, and they're actively trying not to be. Like that's the
Does
best
it
part
need
is
to be smarter?
there are still teams that are like, no, math.
No.
Like math only built the stadium that we're in and put the ice on the ice
Yeah.
that we skate on. But no, we
Fair
won't use it
enough.
for players.
No to the players.
Fair
Yeah.
enough to your facts, but what of my feelings? Have we thought of that at all?
Have you considered my gut?
What about it?
So the Josh Levo trade. Quickly on that.
I'm sad.
Sad to see him go, but like, part of me thinks. I mean, first off, they did the guy a favor, but I also was like,
It made me feel a lot better that he asked for this.
Yes.
He didn't request a trade, but they had a handshake agreement. Look, if it's going to be hard for me to get in the lineup, I don't want to do this again. Trade me. So it makes me feel better that it was mutual.
I just sort of wish he'd learned to win faceoffs. So it could have been no offense.
Fourth line center.
No offense to Freddie Gauthier, but I feel like Josh Levo is a better player, and
There's no feel like about it. He's a better player.
I just like it's kind of like, could you just have learned faceoffs or something, man? So we could have kept you.
Well, you're asking a guy to randomly play center.
Yeah.
For the first time in his career, it's a little tough.
For 8 minutes a night. Come on,
In
Josh.
the NHL.
Do you remember when Gauthier was a good player and we were like
No.
really high on him?
No.
He was on the
I was
Marlies.
never really high on him. I was just
What?
surprised that he wasn't a bad player.
No, people were excited about Gauthier.
Oh yeah, for sure. Listen, I want Gauthier to succeed.
I would like to look up the nicest thing I ever said about Freddie Gauthier, and it was probably, "Hey, he scored a goal."
That's nice.
I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
I don't hate him.
Happy for
But
him.
we
His
want him to
teammates-
succeed.
His
People
teammates love his
thought
life.
He would be the 4th line center. That'd be easy.
I think that was the hope when he was drafted, and this shows how ideology has changed. The hope when he was drafted is
Elite third liner.
third line center.
Elite. They said elite third liner.
No, but that's
Said the same thing about Colby Armstrong. While we're
And
paying
he
him a lot of
couldn't
money,
even
but
live
he'll
up
be
to that.
an amazing third line.
But he couldn't even live up to that.
Well, no, he also had a
Goat?
couple knee injuries along the way, and
Goat, man. So the Leafs have funny center depth. It's funny because they're the deepest team at center in the league, maybe.
and then falls off a cliff after.
Well, exactly. And then if someone gets hurt,
It's Steve in
calling
the
someone
lineup.
up, it's difficult. Like Ian Tulloch putting in Adam Brooks. I am not certain, sir. I am not certain of that at all.
Well, I mean, but he's just playing around. It's just cap friendly.
Yes, of course. He's just playing around. I see all these scenarios where they're like, and then Pierre Engvall, and listen, I like him too, but they're more likely to go out and get a cheap vet, I think. Anyway, we got away from the trade.
Those exist.
They do. The trade, Levo for Carcone, apparently. That's how you say it. I'm a terrible Italian.
What do you know about Carcone?
Oh, I have it all on my phone. So Carcone, he's a Canadian kid, Ontario kid. He's from Ajax. I know.
Like Mike Zigomanis.
Yeah, because this guy is. I talked to him. We can talk about that later too. Here's what someone told me. More skill than he's given credit for. Has great wheels, very good edges. He can play up or down your lineup. I don't know how much truth there is to this. Was just about to be called up to Vancouver. He was second on the list. Very good kid. Really hit his stride in the playoffs last year. Travis Green is a big fan. He played for Stouffville in the OJHL. Signed as a free agent with Drummondville. So that isn't always the greatest thing when an Ontario kid goes to the Q. Usually you're obviously supposed to go to the O. But it has worked out in the past. In fact, it worked out in the past with a Leafs draft pick. Chris DiDomenico, Ontario-born kid.
Oh, it worked out great.
And also with Drummondville. Hey, listen, he would have been fine. He broke his quad.
Oh, Jesus.
They're
okay.
not quad. Femur. Which, I mean, that's donezo for a lot of guys. The fact he was able to crawl back to the NHL, granted years later.
With the Sens, right?
Crawl.
Oh, I think
said
I
it.
want to say Sens. I want to say Blackhawks, Sens, and Lightning.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure, but yeah, it's happened before, and actually, funny enough,
I mean,
it was
Sidney
with
Crosby
Drummondville.
didn't have too much problem coming through the queue, right?
Good players play in the queue, man. Like,
I mean, I seem to remember somebody from Rimouski doing okay.
yeah.
By the name of
I
Crosby.
saw someone's like, he couldn't even score in the queue. I'm like, man, he's over a point a game. Like, I know offense is high in that league, but that's okay for crying out loud.
And he's 17 points in 20 AHL games this year? Something like that?
17 points in 20 AHL games, which is much higher than his pace last season. Apparently, this isn't the first time the Leafs have inquired regarding this player. Trains in Whitby in the off-season, like I said. And apparently he owns a restaurant, which I saw Justin Fisher say, and I thought he was kidding. He's not.
It's a good investment.
Owns a restaurant,
Adam,
I think, in
It's a
Peterborough.
terrible investment.
As an investment person.
Nope.
As a person who knows about investments.
Nope.
Is a restaurant a good investment?
Well, listen, you can make a pile of money in restauranting, but you better know the business. Restauranting is, I think, is it 80% of them fail in the first 5 years? Mm-hmm. So that wouldn't be where I would put my money, but I don't know the business. So I wouldn't put my money there, but good for him. If he's got a successful restaurant, look at Gordon Ramsay, Jamie Oliver. They do great.
He plays one game with the Leafs. Hang that jersey up in the restaurant. Owned by former Leaf Michael Carcone or current Leaf Michael Carcone.
And he'll go to the ACC,
That's
Scotiabank
awesome.
Arena, and hand out the jersey to the armed forces because they have, literally, who did they have the other? Christian Hansen.
That's okay. Here we go.
It was the Vegas game.
Who will play more career games as a Leaf? Michael Carcone or Christian Hansen?
Carcone.
I think
Might be
Carcone.
Carcone. Now, the odds of him making the NHL, it's weird. I saw a lot of stuff like, he doesn't project to be an NHL guy.
Based on what?
Well, okay. His AHL production last year wasn't amazing, but he's 22, and
What's interesting here
it's
is that
not out of the realm of possibility, man.
you know when you have a friend
not crazy.
who dates somebody, guy or girl, and all their boyfriends or girlfriends all sort of look the same. It's like they have a type. The Leafs,
it's like the group just,
Yeah, the Leafs have a type. They like guys who
Speedy.
can skate because I feel like the one thing that they will.
it's important.
Well, for sure.
Man, this soccer team really likes guys who can run.
The thing is that a lot of the stuff
You know?
that goes along with it, they can teach they could teach better decision making. They could teach better positioning. They could teach probably better puck work. But they can't. It's pretty hard to tell someone, all right, go faster now.
There's so much to skating. And another thing I'm slowly learning is there's so much to stick handling that is skating. Right? So if that's your base, that's your rock, you got a good foundation.
There might be a chance.
Yeah, everything else is bonus.
And ultimately, you got to look at. I mean, the Marlies need help right now. They're doing not well. They don't have any goalies, though. That's the problem. We did find out yesterday that the Leafs did put in a claim for Calvin Pickard, but of course Arizona gets it because they're lower on the totem pole.
Yeah,
in terms of points.
About that was live tweeted by Turnip Cannon,
who's a longtime listener to this show.
He's great. So Lawrence Gilman, Leafs assistant GM and GM of the Marlies, who Kyle Dubas forced to accept a championship ring, a Calder Cup ring. Mm-hmm. They just got the rings. Holy smokes, that's a minor league ring. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine how big the Leafs ring is going to be? It's going to be a fist. Cool. Yeah. Oh, it looks amazing.
It should be a fist.
It's just going to be... You wear
finally!
No, you just have a diamond-encrusted glove like friggin' Thanos. I was on the Leafs when they won the Cup. The Leafs put in a claim on Pickard, but it goes in order, right? Of need or whatever, and the Leafs are doing too well. So they weren't able to get him. And they tried to trade McElhinney to the Hurricanes, as we suspected they did. But the Hurricanes, like most teams in the league, said, we'll just try to get him for free. Now, it's interesting, though, because we said at the time, well, if you think you can get a guy for free, why wouldn't you try it?
Sure.
Why would you give up something when you could just get it for free? I bet Philly's wishing they gave up something. Because Philly claimed Pickard the day that McElhinney was claimed as well. You think Philly was maybe hoping they could have had McElhinney?
Maybe.
I think Philly might be wishing they gave up something. It's a completely different season. The outlook of the Eastern Conference could be completely different. Where would the Hurricanes be without McElhinney right now?
This is a conversation we're having, by the way.
I know. It's insane. It's insane.
And they dropped Scott Darling, the guy that gave up a lot to get.
Where would one of the best possession teams in the entire league be without career backup to third goalie, Curtis
Never played
McElhinney?
more than 30 games in a year, Curtis McElhinney. It's amazing. And it's great for him.
Someone threw this out there, and it's ridiculous, but it's not ridiculous enough. McElhinney's like pulling a Tim Thomas. Except McElhinney seems like nice and likable. He's in his 30s and magically playing the best hockey of his career. He's a starter. He's a starting goaltender in the NHL. So, the Leafs, I don't know about got ripped off, but they had some bad luck there, right? Teams figured, well, we'll just take our chances and try to get him for free. Mm-hmm. There's a few teams in the NHL right now going, I wish we had made a claim. Or, not I wish we had made a claim. Wish we had made that trade. How much would McElhinney have possibly cost?
Fifth or a sixth. If that.
Even a third. Like, for crying out loud, the Devils can't stop a beach ball. The Flyers can't stop a beach ball. The Hurricanes, without McElhinney, can't stop a pumpkin. I'm just going to say big round things. There's so many teams in this league that need a freaking goalie.
Curtis McElhinney's last 28 games, he's 18, 7, and 2.
That's stupid.
With a .932 save percentage.
18, 7, and 2. The Leafs are 19 and 8, and they're off to their best start since 1934.
Yeah.
And McElhinney's record is what?
18, 7, and 2 in his last 28 games.
Preposterous.
Yeah.
To me, that's preposterous.
Yeah.
Curtis McElhinney, things of that nature. That's ridiculous.
It's not bad.
That's not worth a third? Come on now. Now, granted, we never thought McElhinney would actually stay that good. And I'm willing to bet most teams around the NHL thought the same. Dude, the Hurricanes didn't even think so. That's why they got him, I think. Oh, someone's hurt. And Peter Mrazek kind of stinks. So, let's make a claim. We'll throw him right back on waivers. I think the Leafs thought they were going to get this player back.
Now, when you compare and contrast that to, and I don't know if you can make a comparison, but a guy like Daniel Sprong, who was traded yesterday.
Yep.
That deal is interesting because that's a young puck-moving defenseman who seems to be, at least from the outside looking in, the archetype for what NHL defensemen are going to be. And
Marcus Pettersson?
Marcus Pettersson, yeah.
Okay.
Well, it just seems like Pittsburgh gave up a little early, and it seems a bit odd to make that trade. Does it not?
That has ugly potential.
Okay, so why do you say that?
Tell me, ugly potential.
Talk to me about that.
Well, in the same way that, okay, listen, AHL success is not necessarily an indicator of NHL success. TJ Brennan, Mike Zigomanis. The problem is when TJ Brennan and Mike Zigomanis were putting up their crazy AHL numbers, they weren't 21 and 22 years old. That's why I think the Coyotes are slightly nuts for getting rid of Dylan Strome already, and sweetening the pot to get rid of Dylan Strome. Are you joking?
Yeah.
That's why I think they're a little nuts for doing that. Man, Daniel Sprong put up numbers in the AHL last year, and for that age, you better be right. You better be right.
But
here's the thing: you better be right, or you're very wrong. Sometimes you're not always right.
Mm-hmm.
But this one's got ugly potential, man.
Well, so Marcus Pettersson, though, I mean, is that a guy? Is that a guy that's going to help the Penguins at all? Like former second round pick, but that was 4 years ago.
Defensemen also take longer to develop, for sure. It's just they're both former second rounders. I want to say Pettersson was 2014 and Sprong was 2015. Might be the other way around. One is, you get it. The Ducks need goals. The Penguins need stops, but I think Sprong's going to score more goals than Pettersson's going to stop him.
Seattle
Might be wrong.
Seattle has a team as of today.
Whoa!
Now we know that their first season will be 2021. What did you say, Jesse? What was the June? Which June is the expansion draft? It's
June 2021.
It is 2021.
The same year they become a team. Yes.
No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure I was right on because I never trust my own dates because I always get numbers screwed up.
That'll be just after this podcast's 8th anniversary.
Interestingly enough, and thanks to Pete Blackburn for digging this one up.
Thanks to Pete Blackburn in general.
Just for being Pete.
Handsome boy.
The NHL has acquired the Seattle Metropolitans trademark. The Seattle Metropolitans, Jesse brought this up before the show, were the first American team to win the Stanley Cup. So they've acquired that trademark in Canada, but a 26-year-old Korean American who is a former hockey player and an Ivy Leaguer owns the rights to the Seattle Metropolitans. And he had the foresight a few years ago to invest
in Canada.
No, in the United States.
Oh, in the United States.
So they've already bought it in Canada. Now they need to buy the trademark rights from this 26-year-old in the States.
And the right thing to do is to name them something different and say, screw you, kid.
Yep.
You don't get your fucking money.
What's the guy's name?
Whatever his name is, I don't know.
Let me see if I can pull that up for you.
What's the guy's name? Whatever his name is, that's the new name of the team. Look up, he's an Ivy Leaguer. He probably owns a business. Name the team his business. Yeah. Just to do something to mess with him.
Yeah, so he owns the team. He actually had jerseys made and everything. Paul Kim is his name.
Yeah, they're now the Seattle Paul Kims. Yeah.
Do it.
That's amazing.
The Seattle way to go,
honestly,
Pauls.
I love stories like that. I think that's amazing.
Dick.
No, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? That's amazing. Good for him. No, he's not a dick, man. That's a good investment. That's smart. That's foresight. We were talking about a team in Seattle
there are
4 years ago.
Lots of things that are smart foresight that involve being a dick.
Yeah, you can have smart foresight and also be a dick.
Are you guys upset that a billionaire might have to pay a kid maybe $1 million for their trademark? Are you really upset about that?
Adam just changed my mind.
Come
also,
on.
he's 26, a kid. An Ivy League 26-year-old. Ivy League educated 26-year-old.
Are you suggesting that
both parties in this story?
You have no idea.
They both stink.
He might have got there just on merits and got a scholarship and put himself through school.
You know what? Maybe you're right.
Let's not make.
Maybe you're
let's
right.
not hate the
You're
rich.
absolutely right.
Just for being.
Watch me. I hope the Seattle owner's name is Rich.
This guy,
that way
how dare this guy go to school and get an education and be good at hockey and care enough
I agree,
to invest.
Adam.
Come
are you
on.
being sarcastic?
The guy was an Ivy League hockey player as well. Come on.
Oh, he might have got a hockey scholarship.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a hockey player. Oh, okay, I like this kid.
Somebody shows a little ingenuity and you guys hate it.
Listen, I don't care what his origin story is. What he did is annoying.
Yeah, he's being a little bit
annoying.
Yeah.
Oh boy. You got
Adam,
a whole world of annoying
what if
waiting for
someone
you, man.
squatted
Come
on
on.
the Steve Dangle podcast?
Somebody is. On the Twitter, there's an account that people actually think is our account, and it's not. It's at SD.
No, but nobody thinks it's
SD podcast. No, they do. 100% people.
No.
People actually think that's our account, and that's okay. I don't care, but it's not. So you're come on, man.
What? Okay, I think Andrew Berkshire is a bit of a dick because his new Twitter handle.
You mean the real
is,
Steve Dangle?
Yes, Steve Dangle, real. Which you're gonna mess around, Andrew. Like, you're verified. Look out! I'm not gonna report you.
It's so great. I
think
love
it's
it.
hilarious. I also think it's hilarious that he's being friggin' Luke Skywalker to Justin Fisher's Yoda. And Justin's
just giving him hints.
He's just teaching him how to troll me.
Listen,
Andrew,
man,
yes.
I just think it's very funny that you guys think that a young man who is
Who
obviously,
did nothing.
obviously very
who did
smart.
essentially nothing.
Oh.
What do you do? What do you do?
You guys, you're
A young man.
You're so embarrassing right now.
No,
I cannot.
let's talk about how inspiring it is that this young man filed a form.
Yeah, he didn't do anything, Adam.
Filed a form for an idea he didn't have.
For something that existed, and he took the name of a historic
He
franchise.
bought it.
He bought it.
He paid for it.
Yeah,
guys.
so he could get paid later, so he could screw the NHL.
How
That's
long
not-
ago
that's
did he
not
do this?
cool.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, the poor NHL.
No,
long
but that's
ago did he
not
do
the
this?
point.
How long ago? No, Adam. First of all, get the idea that there's good and bad guys in this story.
Yeah.
It's all bad guys. How long ago was this? How long ago was this?
You know what? It's Business Journal, so I can't really read it because I'm not a subscriber. Business Journal.
Oh
can't
no!
really-
You don't have
Yeah.
That's
the
one of those
details.
pay for websites.
Yeah.
Okay, if he did it 6 months ago, it was that's annoying. If he did it a bunch of years ago, well, I don't know. He paid for a thing that had pretty low likelihood of actually happening.
Hey, Paul.
And that's actually kind of interesting.
Paul Kim, if you're listening to this,
God, I hope that's not their jerseys. We wish you a Merry Christmas.
Those were the original
we wish you a
jerseys.
Merry Christmas.
That's what they looked like.
Yeah, a lot of things look stupid back then.
The original Steelers jerseys are ugly as hell too, and they keep bringing those back. They look like
the reason
bumblebees.
they changed them.
Paul Kim, if you were watching this, I want to have you on the show.
I do too.
I want to know this story, and I want you to tell Steve why it's not annoying. I'm so flummoxed as to how you can hate a young guy younger than us, Jesse's age,
And when
coming up with a
when
great
you
idea like this.
And when you come on the show, you're not going to be able to because there will be another guest here.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, someone's just gonna
Squat on his-
be in the spot, and it's gonna be their spot now.
Oh my God, you
Adam,
guys!
they had the foresight to come on our show.
Yeah, they were here first, so
Okay.
They didn't pay anything
We're
to come
gonna
on our
have,
show.
I'm going to find an Ivy League educated 26-year-old. How hard is that going to be?
Brian Burke's Ivy League educated. Maybe it can be him.
All right, he's a little old, but I'll take him. Can you imagine he's just sitting here? You had me here as a goddamn prank. This is bullshit.
It would go over really well, I think. Yeah.
No, it would not.
Anyway, so
Brian Burke, a.k.a. Old Nylander hair.
we'll see what we'll see what what happens with this. But I think obviously I think Metropolitans is probably going to be the name. And why not?
Why
Also, I
not?
would
Because
go
there's a
something
division
new.
called the Metropolitan Division.
yeah, I would go with something new, just for the sake of
Seattle Rough Riders.
not doing
No,
that.
the Winnipeg Jets thing didn't work out at all.
The Seattle Jets.
So the Jets can take on the Jets.
Yeah. Why not? We've proven
I hope
in
it's
North
the Seattle
America
Wildcats.
it doesn't matter.
I hope it's the Wildcats.
Seattle Wildcats would be good. What was another one?
What was the?
Didn't they have the Millionaires? Oh, it was a Vancouver.
What were the Knights? The Golden Knights weren't supposed to be the Golden Knights. They were supposed to be
Was it
something
just
else.
the Knights?
Yeah, they're supposed to be the Knights, right?
There was some. I think they might still have an ongoing suit.
Yeah, because they named it
Army.
after a military division, which is exactly what the Leafs are named after. And they, I believe, I believe the United States government filed suit or something like that and said it's too similar.
yeah.
And it's not even that it's a direct; it's similar.
The Supersonics.
But it was
The Seattle Supersonics.
Supersonics.
The Seattle. No. Here, you know how to appeal to the youths? The Seattle Superchronics.
Oh, shut up! Oh my God, you are just wow.
And they'll get players that match the lifestyle. They'll steal Tim Heed. from the Sharks.
Army?
Tim Heed every day.
This is from February
Come on, Adam.
1st
Love
of this
it.
past year.
Love it. Love
Army,
me.
Vegas Golden Knights working on settlement over name dispute. The Vegas Golden Knights hockey team and the Army are working on settling the trademark dispute that has hung over the NHL expansion team. Black Knight Sports Entertainment, LLC, owner of the vote.
This is a great article. I'd pay for this.
So the Army does have a division called the Golden Knights. It's the United States Army parachute team. And they sued the Golden Knights for using this.
The Las Vegas
They
Parachutes.
maybe shouldn't have. Because like ultimately, okay, so you're the parachute team. You have a team named after you because you have a sick name and a sick reputation,
You just don't like people getting.
and you're going to sue them?
They believe, they would say to that, Adam, we believe the service will be damaged if the Vegas Golden Knights are able to register their trademark.
Oh, Jesus. So they're going into a foreign country. They're going to extract a prisoner. I don't think I'll be able to do our job. We have an NHL team that's similar to us.
They say, we want to ensure there's no confusion between the sports team and the United States parachute
Believe
team.
me, there won't be.
They want to ensure that.
Well, you've just insured it.
I don't
Thank
know,
you.
Adam. Did you see the firepower on the team last year? I know I was confused.
They certainly dropped in out of nowhere. If you know what I'm talking about.
Man,
right into the cup finals.
The defenses of Marc-Andre Fleury. Oh. It's like armor. You see, people are stupid.
Making parachute jokes.
Oh, I'm ignoring them.
Wow. I think you should have gone with
Do you
the
wanna know
parachute.
how-
You know what? I made a parachute joke. I'm squatting on it. Paul Kim.
Do you want to know how the
Anytime I want to just claim something, Paul Kim.
do you want to know how the lawsuit ended?
How did
Yes.
that
So in this past July 19th this is when the lawsuit ended. They said, we are pleased that we have agreed to coexist regarding the use of the Golden Knights. Bill Foley, chairman and CEO of the Golden Knights, said in a statement, our discussions with the Army were collaborative and productive throughout the entire process. We are appreciative of their efforts and commitment to reaching an amicable solution.
You know, it took me way too long to get that the Vegas Golden Knights mask makes a V. It took me way
middle
too
there.
long to understand that. Yeah.
Some people have just realized that because you said it.
And they're going to go,
I can't unsee it.
I never thought.
Oh, but what if somebody trademarked the V earlier and they just were sitting there and they
You're
had
using
the
the
V?
letter V. You can't use the letter V without my permission.
No,
William Van Voss filed a lawsuit
The Aegis Golden Knights.
with his representation, Paul Kim. And they
Paul
just...
Im.
But Paul
Because the K is taken
Vol
too.
Vim.
Volvim.
obviously, because they owned a trademark for the better V.
You know why I bet they couldn't use Las Vegas? I bet Las Vegas is trademarked.
yeah, the city.
So that's
yeah.
why they call them the Vegas Golden Knights.
Probably. Maybe.
I bet that's the reason.
Yeah.
What's not trademarked? Do you see why I'm annoyed?
Well, the Metropolitans weren't until some sleazy man had to slide in
He's
there.
not sleazy. He's
Hey,
smart.
come on.
That guy's
No,
brilliant.
he's college educated.
No, I forgot. He's a
Paul Kim.
genius. Yeah.
You guys are like
Paul Kim.
you guys are the
Hashtag.
Don Cherry of this topic. Old and outdated.
No, you're
Both of you.
siding with the old huckster over here.
You mean the guy who used
Huckster.
You're
Brilliant.
siding.
Who also-
mathematical skills to deduce that
There was no math.
that would go up X amount percent and I'd be able to make money off of it.
No, he was guessing
Guys,
that they would use that.
You guys are like, oh, I'm upset I didn't come up with that idea. Yeah, that's what it is.
yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Jesse
You're
and I
mad.
would've freaking
You're mad.
punched into a few couch cushions
yeah.
and got
He's gonna
some
make
change and
money
bought
for
the
nothing,
millionaires.
whereas you schmucks have to go work for it. You don't
yeah.
think that that's brilliant?
No, shame on us for not trying to steal a name that's
we
existed.
work hard so we can hold our heads high.
I think publicly he'd be
Lord.
like, listen, hey, here's why I did it.
Yeah, and it'd be
And
a
behind
lie.
closed doors,
I'm gonna go out and invest in every old NHL trademark I can. Like after this show, I'm going in.
Yeah, and you'd be a
Kansas?
huckster.
I'm gonna see.
Kansas?
I'm gonna see if I can pull the Nordiques out of somewhere. Who's got the Nordiques trademark? I want it.
Maybe you could buy it.
Coyotes, I think. Or no, the Avalanche.
Go buy it. Go buy it, Adam. You
And-
huckster.
I don't know. Ask the Sens. I don't want to make any deals with Colorado. I don't think it's a good idea.
That's a good point.
We should trademark all the Rough Riders just in case another CFL team
Oh,
wants
see,
to come
that
up.
somebody actually owns the Ottawa Rough Riders trademark, which is why when they came back as the Renegades, they couldn't be the Rough Riders.
Let's trademark Happy Birthday.
I believe
Let's just go full super.
Doesn't
Who
Gene-
would ever think to do such a thing?
Gene Simmons owns the trademark to OJ, like as in the short form for orange juice. So if you ever wanted to use that in an ad, you can't because he owns it.
Yeah.
You have to
I
pay
would
him.
definitely if I was in the very niche field of orange juice commercials, I would call it Orange J, just to be a jerk.
Orange J. That sounds
Yeah,
like
he
Or
has
oat
a bunch of
juice.
stuff trademarked, right?
yeah, he's brilliant. And like Taylor Swift tried to do sort of the same thing. Like she tried to trademark the year 1989 because that was the name of her album. And like
What was the other thing?
What was the Taylor, the old Taylor isn't here right now or something like that. She had a couple phrases she wanted trademarked so that
And then this metal band did like a metal cover of "We Never Go Out of Style," or "Out of Style." We never go out. It's bananas.
Oh, cool.
You gotta listen to it because she tried to trademark some
different
ridiculous-
albums, bro.
That band's name? Polka.
No. Anyway, the it'll be very, very interesting to see. You know what's going to be interesting too is how many NHL teams sign bad contracts in the next few years that go, well, whatever, I can trade it to Seattle. Like, I wonder if that opens up spending just a little bit. Like,
If you
give whatever.
Like, Jesse, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The NHL isn't as fun, but what little parachutes they're given, they'll take it.
What little Goldenite parachutes?
The Vegas
Wait,
parachutes.
which one are we talking about? I'm confused.
I am so confused. It's a good thing they filed that lawsuit.
Yeah.
And-
I'm glad to have cleared that up.
Yes,
So
but
I'm very taken aback by the ridiculousness of this conversation. I don't even remember where we were going.
the
So
par-
the NHL has more restrictions, and it's because they can't help themselves. They can't help themselves. And Doug McLean actually made a really good point where he was talking about, like, well, what do you think the other teams around the league feel about the Nylander deal? He's like, I don't care. And good for him. Yeah, your job, Kyle Dubas' job is to run the Toronto Maple Leafs. When McLean was a GM, his was to run the Columbus Blue Jackets. Why should he give a damn what the Minnesota Wild or friggin' Nashville Predators GM thinks?
Well, and what I find funny about the conversation, and I forgot to bring this up earlier, is that the interesting thing with the NHL is that they will. Oh my god! I fucking lost the point. I had it, and then I lost it. What did you just say?
Paul Kim is squatting.
Say it one
on
more
your
time.
no, somebody
Doug
had your quote
McLean.
already.
Doug McLean.
I don't care what other GMs think.
Right.
Kyle Dubas?
There are a lot of people claiming that Marner and Matthews would get offer sheeted if they don't make it to July 1st.
Bring it on.
Which is possible.
Bring it on.
Sure.
But here's the other thing that I find interesting is that there are what are they saying, 10 to 15 RFAs next year that are legitimate superstars. So where are these offer sheets coming from? That's half the league right there.
Here's
that
one I
already
saw.
has a huge negotiation on their hands.
Here's one I saw. Arizona is going to offer sheet Matthews $14 million. Please do that. Please do that.
All right.
I want to see it happen. I want to see it. Listen, I'll be sad to lose my Austin.
He'd also have to sign it,
He'd also have to sign it.
which I don't think so. I don't think so.
Arizona, who has like $5, is going to give us they're going to give the Leafs 4 first-round picks because they signed a player they clearly can't afford. Oh yeah, no, leave the movie on. I want to see how this ends.
Is
I want to see how this ends.
Is $14 million not possible under the cap right now?
It's 14.59, I think, right
Is
now.
That's the top
I think that's the
end?
max you can make.
Okay. I thought it was 13 something.
It's high.
It is high. It's very high.
Yeah. It's whatever. Anyways,
Well,
would you
next
take,
year when it's 83, right?
would you take 4 first-round picks for Austin Matthews?
No,
No.
I don't. Well,
I
No.
might think about it.
no.
No, not on the
No? Not
because you got to
Matthews?
look at your age
Yeah.
group, right? The age group that you're in.
You
This age
want
group,
the draft picks in the hopes of one day getting a player as good as Austin Matthews, right?
Yeah.
and I think
That's
Austin Matthews. Like, to be honest with you, I think Austin Matthews wouldn't sign that because he knows. He maybe later on in his career, if Nick Kyprios has his druthers, Austin Matthews goes back to Arizona and he can go, see, I was right.
Yeah.
Listen,
That's so funny.
But
there's part of me, even as a Leafs fan, where I'm like, yeah, I could see how that'd be cool.
no, I don't think
Not-
that's cool. I
but
don't
not
think
now.
No,
Nope.
Steve, there's nothing cool about that.
You're
Take
right.
that back.
You're right, Polka.
You were
Sorry.
saying some whack shit today, man.
The coffee's
what
good.
the hell is this?
The coffee-
It would be cool if Matthews went back to Arizona.
The coffee's fucked.
Why don't you go back to Oshawa,
Jesse,
sir?
new mugs. The coffee's fucked. Sorry. Make them. Do it.
All I'm saying is that if first of all, Arizona, he's never going to sign that. You know why? Because he wants to win the cup. And so you're going to make a pile of money in Toronto, and you know you're going to make more money here than you're going to make anywhere else. And it doesn't mean
What do you mean Arizona doesn't have a chance to win a cup? They just signed a $14 million superstar.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. Okay, sure.
Please try it.
Yeah, okay.
Go for it.
Well, the Leafs would match it anyway. Chuck Fletcher, speaking of spending money, is the new general manager of the Philadelphia Flyers. Chuck Fletcher, Steve, who you ranted and raved about, the guy that, in your estimation, caused the lockout, the last one.
I mean, he didn't, but, I mean, man, you told me to look up that rant. I forgot how mad I was that day.
You were mad.
I had some deep-seated, deep-rooted hatred in the Minnesota Wild. Now, Chuck Fletcher, I'm sure...
I've heard he's a great guy.
Again, who cares what other teams think?
Yeah.
And yes, I've heard he's an amazing person. Who cares what other teams think? If you have a chance that day to sign Zach Parise and Ryan Suter,
You do it.
you do it. You want to make your team better, you do it. I think some of that might have been ownership. It must have been. There's $196 million worth of contracts in two guys, Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. Here's the concerning thing for me as a Philadelphia Flyers fan, right? So, well, the Flyers got their man. They got exactly who they wanted. And I think maybe part of the reason they fired Hextall is they're like, well, Chuck Fletcher's available. And the thing was, Hextall wasn't doing what ownership wanted him to. Chuck Fletcher, as his track record seems to show, will. He'll do what his boss says no matter what. And his boss is Paul Holmgren.
Who's a wild man. He's just crazy.
In essence, Paul Holmgren is GM. I mean, he's not... I still think it might be similar-ish to when Burke was president of the Flames. Might not even be that free. Because it seemed like Burke, while he did have a say, ultimately let Brad Treliving do his job. Chuck Fletcher, I think, is going to do a lot of the dirty work, but Paul Holmgren's going to have the final say. Also, how many people has Chuck Fletcher asked for a goalie so far? Probably a bunch. That or he's just going to, like,
I'm just laughing. I can't wait.
He's just going to start, like, Anthony Stollers is going to have, like, ow, like all these pricks. Did you just inject me with something? No. No, what are you talking about? I'm the new guy. Hey, what's up? I'm Chuck.
I wonder if there's a team that falls out of contention that trades a goalie to a desperate team. I mean, who's got two good goalies or three good goalies?
Gibson. No. Didn't you have the idea of Ryan Miller?
Yeah,
I did.
It's a great idea, man.
Yeah.
Might be good for the Flyers. We saw the Oilers without Connor McDavid, who was sick, and boy, the Oilers are bad. They lose 4-1 to the Stars,
good.
but it wasn't even close. No. Like it's not even a question that this is not a very good team.
They had a fight,
and you deal with exactly or you get to see what Connor McDavid is shouldering.
Yeah, I mean, this one game, but it's a bad one game, right? And when they lost him in his rookie year, it's not like they were good either. They were pretty bad. But their record under Hitchcock, it should be noted.
3-1?
I want to say 4-2.
Not bad.
4-2-1.
Not bad.
Pretty good. Their record, now this is getting real niche, but you know someone in the Oilers media is saying it. Their record under Hitchcock with McDavid, I think is 4-1-1. Just saying.
Let's read into that.
Let's do it. You don't think they're doing that today? Check Twitter. Check Twitter. Type in
I will not venture into Oilers
Hitchcock
Twitter.
with McDavid. I just want to see what people are saying. No. Hitchcock with McDavid. And just things from the last 24 hours. I want to see what people are saying. Come on, you know it. This requires too much reading. This is boring.
Yeah, this was a bad idea.
Boo. Sorry. A lot of my ideas are bad. I wish I came up with the idea.
Let's go into in-depth research for something niche right now on the show.
I came up with the idea to squat on the Seattle whatever.
You'd be a lot richer than you are right now. Come on, man.
Would.
Tyler Bertuzzi, suspended 2 games, will miss out on $15,000 in salary after a sucker punch to, and I keep forgetting his name.
It was for crying out loud, Matt Calvert. Who I keep thinking is on the Blue Jackets, and he's not.
I mean, honestly, when you see it, it's the most Tyler Bertuzzi move you've ever seen. But I'm actually.
I don't know why something like that triggers me so much. What a chicken shit move. What a chicken shit move by the entire Red Wings bench. By that whole chicken shit team. What they did was chicken shit. I lost a lot of respect for Dylan Larkin on that play. You're beaking at him from the bench, from the safety of the bench. Has Dylan Larkin ever dropped his gloves in the NHL?
No.
Cemented on. And you're grabbing a guy from the bench. He held a guy while Bertuzzi, who will actually fight on occasion, filled him with an uppercut from the bench. Calvert's issue there was he didn't pretend to be hurt. He should have gone down. Should have acted like he got shot. Dude, he got mugged by like 4 guys from the bench. What were the Red Wings thinking? They're lucky that Tyler Bertuzzi was the only person suspended from that thing. If you lay a finger, if you touch someone with your glove from the bench, you should be suspended. I care.
Thought that was sort of the thing, like,
Yeah, it was.
I mean, like the David Clarkson thing. I mean, he left the bench, but what's the difference?
The lesson learned here is the NHL is never going to suspend. Like, if something like that happens, they're never going to suspend more than one guy.
If it's Tom Wilson, it's 10 games, by the way.
Oh, for sure.
Just
he's also a repeat offender.
Yeah, Dylan Larkin has fought a couple times.
He's fought a couple times?
His first fight was in...
Why didn't he do it in this one?
2016.
You wanted to go, didn't you?
His first fight was
You're
in 2016.
the captain of the team. You're Dylan Larkin. You'll be out next shift. Go on.
With Yannick Weber. Yeah, they're good fight. Good tilt.
Yannick Weber.
And then he fought Braden
He
Point
beat
last
him,
year.
and he had mercy on him there.
Braden
Held him
Point.
down, didn't throw the punch.
Braden Point fight here. He's fought a couple times.
Braden Point, boy, he really punches up, doesn't he?
He's going.
No, I can't. How do you? There's no code in hockey, and there never has been one. I want to know what part of the code this is. I want to know what part of the code says jersey a guy while your actually tough teammate fills him with uppercuts from the bench. You know, Tyler Bertuzzi is getting punished for this. He's getting suspended. What he did was obviously ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I'm glossing over it because it's obvious that it's ridiculous, and at least he's being punished for it. Larkin's getting nothing for being a coward. I hated that play. I hated it. I don't know why.
Is there a coward penalty now in the NHL?
No, but like, look at who was the guy who held the stick? You're a chicken shit too.
This is the full play if you want to watch it back. Adam.
Yeah, I want to see it. I want to see it one more time. Oh, so it's Mike Green's in there.
Yeah.
And the face he's making while he's holding them. It makes me sick.
So who's that right there?
Who is that?
What number was that? I'll look it up.
Too bad he's on the Red Wings. I can't
So
even name half of them.
I guess the Red
27?
Wings took exception to Calvert's stick on the original play because he sort of swung it at the bench.
Yeah.
So if you look at the original play, look. No, just look. See where his stick goes? You know, it hit a couple guys
he
in the
got
head.
hit. Stop. They thought it was intentional. No, Adam, no.
I'm just saying
I'm sure that's the excuse they made.
Yes, 100%.
I'm 100% sure that's the excuse he made. They didn't get up in anger. The guy just casually held his stick, being a shit. He was just being a shit. No, that's gutless. That's gutless, and I'm disgusted.
Now, this Saturday, does Don Cherry like or hate this play?
Hate.
You
Well,
think?
yeah, but then it's going to be awkward because it's Tyler Bertuzzi, and I think he likes that player. What a chicken shit. And
The punch Tyler goes, he comes in, he swings back. It's
he
disgusting.
hits him good, man.
Yeah,
He hits him good. Good on Calvert for eating one. And Bertuzzi, buddy, how much of a momentary lapse in judgment is that? Dude, even if he attacked you, if he full on Darcy Tucker at the Sens bench attacks you, are you actually out of your mind throwing a bare knuckle punch from the bench? You're gone. Of course you're gone. Of course you're suspended.
I don't think he cares. I think he's a hero among his teammates, though. I think they love it.
That's fucking stupid.
That's
like
hockey
a lot
culture.
of things in hockey.
It's hockey culture, man.
I don't give a shit.
He's a hero in the dressing
from
room,
a guy
man.
who never played. I don't give a shit. A lot of you are meatheads. And that's one of the dumbest. That's probably the dumbest thing I've seen this season.
What about
In a sport
Tom Wilson?
I mean, that's pretty expected.
It was preseason.
I mean, okay, dirty or dumb? Like
The Sundqvist or the this one?
Sundqvist.
The Sundqvist
Or this
one.
Yeah.
The Sundqvist one.
No, this one, it's sort of like Clarkson leaving the bench a little bit. There's something about the bench. You're not in the play.
Yeah.
You're essentially a fan.
Yeah.
Like, okay, when you take to the ice, there's a certain amount of risk involved. Like, okay, there's a reason why guys can body check you and punch you, and you get maybe a 2-minute penalty and not arrested, right? There's a difference between sport and just, I guess, real everyday civilian life. What's that? When you're on the bench, you're a civilian. You're not playing.
Are you having your Tom Wilson moment?
No, I don't know why. There's something about watching that. Oh, yeah, he's a hero amongst his team. Fuck off. Dylan Larkin, what leadership. Holding the guy down. Like, he's a stereotypical Power Rangers bully. Like, he's literally a
I don't disagree.
90s TV show stereotype of a bully.
And here's the thing. Detroit sucks.
Yeah.
But they're only 2 points out of the playoffs because the Eastern
When did
Conference
Detroit
sucks.
get on this side of the rivalry? I
thought they were the
did
heroes.
the heel turn.
Yeah, they did.
You guys were always the face in
It
this.
is kind of cool to see Avs Detroit hating each other, but Detroit's not in that conference anymore, so they barely play.
Yeah.
And Zadorov with a big hit.
Also, Detroit's not good, so it's not fun.
Yeah.
Who did Zadorov hit? That
I don't
was
know.
A big hit.
I don't know.
This game had some hate, and that was a big, clean hit. Zadorov, I don't know if he's the greatest defenseman in the world, but he's one of the best hitters left in the league. It's kind of funny seeing him go at Cronwall, another one of the best hitters in the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, get out of here. His stick went into the bench. No one's up in arms. He just held. 2 guys held the stick.
3 of them. It was all 3 in the row.
Yeah, and look, what part of the
Rasmussen.
code is this? There's 3 guys.
Yeah.
Oh, but there's a code.
Cowards.
There's a code, Steve. Police themselves.
It should have been more than 2 games, I think.
I actually think so, too, and I'm
Should have
surprised.
been more than 1 player suspended.
Yeah, because it's 10 games automatic if you leave the bench.
That's right.
I think interacting with a guy who's on the ice during play should be the same as leaving the bench.
What part of what Dylan Larkin is doing is self-defense?
None of it.
None of it. None of it. Mm-hmm. The only saving face for those other 2 nameless, faceless guys is going to be in the minors next year. The only reason that those guys weren't punished more is they weren't grabbing a part of him. They were grabbing his stick, his equipment.
That was Rasmussen, by the way.
The
The one on the end who grabbed the
Good for him.
the stick there.
Good for
27.
him. Suspend him. Like, you look, I get there's young guys in this league. You may not touch someone from the bench.
Yeah.
You may not touch their equipment. Like the NHL, Colorado should do this to Detroit next game. Just grab a stick from the bench. It's allowed. It's allowed. Was there a penalty for that? It's allowed. If something happens, it's on camera. Everyone saw it. If something happens and it's not punished, it's allowed.
I don't think that's the rule, but
What else am I supposed to take
I don't
from
think
that?
that's
What
how
else am I
things
supposed
work.
to take from that?
Hey, Adam, if no one was watching and you were speeding, does that mean that's allowed? And you didn't get caught, you didn't get a ticket?
No, say that again.
If a civilian caught you speeding and they recorded on their iPhone,
No. If no one was watching.
I'm changing the
More
rules.
people have seen this clip.
But that's not how it works.
I mean,
Why not?
is it illegal? Sure.
Why not?
Sure.
Why
Yeah.
not? Here it is.
But I got home 5 minutes
Here's-
earlier, and
yeah.
that made me a hero.
You ever heard of a red light
And then
cam,
your wife
Jesse?
is like, "Thank you, Adam."
Wow. Thank you for
Thank you
coming
for being
home
here.
5 minutes earlier.
You ever heard of a red light cam there, Jesse?
I have.
There's the crime.
Yeah.
There it is.
And he got suspended 2 games.
He did. It should be more than 1 player. It should
Well,
be at least 3 players suspended.
well,
in this
I
situation.
just think it's funny
Well,
how
at least 2.
I do think it's funny how Tom Wilson hits a guy in the shoulder, admittedly. Yeah. Do I think that was a dirty play that he laid on? I forget who it was for New Jersey, 32. What's his name?
Brett Seney.
I think it's funny how Tom Wilson, for that, people were losing their minds. I thought he'd be suspended.
Mm-hmm.
I was wrong. But I knew it wasn't a head hit. The point was never whether it was a head hit. It
No.
was a dirty hit.
The intention was you're hitting a guy when the puck isn't even close and he can't see you,
Yeah.
and he's backing up into you, and you still
Yeah,
hit
It's
him.
not a major penalty for interference. I guess.
No, hold on. Let me finish this point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry,
My-
I don't know why I went so ballistic on that. It's just. Sorry.
Wait,
Go
what?
ahead and make your point.
Chicken what?
chicken shit.
I liked it. I thought you're right. You said what I thought. And with Tom Wilson's hit the other week, it was not about that he didn't make head contact. It was a chicken shit play, typical of Tom Wilson. And I have to be honest with you, what he did in that play is far less bad than what happened in Detroit.
Yes.
Well,
Far less.
You can put him on par.
Because
at least it was on the ice.
What was Calvert supposed to do?
How about this? Neither player was eligible to be hit.
Well, and here's the other thing. Okay, so imagine what happens to Calvert happens on the ice. So 4 Detroit Red Wings surround him. Imagine this. 4 Detroit Red Wings surround him and attack him. Are we talking about Tyler Bertuzzi as though he's a hero?
And they're holding his stick so he can't go anywhere. You know?
Like, if that happens on the ice, people are like, whoa, what a bunch of cowards.
Yeah.
Now listen. So let me try to disagree with myself, okay? So I'm trying to go with what was the NHL's decision making here with Wilson. I think Wilson was giving him a nudge on his way by. Yeah, definitely late, but he's doing what pretty much every player in the league does, except for the Leafs, who avoid contact at all costs. Except for Zach Hyman, who's a pig and shit. The difference is Tom Wilson's a friggin' animal. Like he's I mean, one thing Brian Burke said that is true, this was on ice surfing, is there's not many of that left, man.
No, there isn't. It's
there's
true.
not a lot of this left.
And he does make no mistake, people are afraid.
He's fast and huge.
Yep.
So maybe Senny has no idea he's there.
Yeah. It's a shitty move.
He has no idea he's there. You know what it looks like, eerily like, especially because of the jerseys they're wearing? Steckel on Crosby. Except that was... Like, what is the difference in essence of this hit and the Steckel hit on Crosby? I think it's the sheer luck.
Was that the outdoor game one?
Yeah.
No, okay.
It's the sheer luck that Senny did not get hit in the head and Crosby did. I think that's the main difference.
Well,
here.
and I guess the point in here is that it was a chicken shit move. I'm just surprised the NHL didn't do more about it.
Well, see, he got a match penalty, and I think Tom Wilson's. This is interesting.
I'm not talking about Wilson. I'm talking about Bertuzzi. I'm surprised he didn't get more than 2 games. Very surprised. Wilson, I thought he'd get at least 1. Mm-hmm. I was like that because
Detroit loses both those games.
The rule is they can't take into consideration that he's Tom Wilson until it reaches.
It doesn't matter though. I just don't think that that's a hit that you want to. If you do nothing about that hit, then you're condoning that hit.
He got a game technically.
He got kicked out of the game,
yeah,
right? So he got a match
kicked
penalty.
out of the game.
Here's the thing:
in the second period, so he missed a period. So he missed 30 minutes of hockey, of which he would have played 7.
Every time you suspend Tom Wilson, it's a thing. Because he's a repeat offender, because you just had this saga, I think the NHL was like, you know what? I don't need to deal with this anymore, and they washed their hands.
That man shouldn't care anymore. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Are you okay? Are you okay? Okay, he's fine. Good, he got kicked out of the game.
If I'm the Devils, I'm furious. I'm
fuming. Of course you should be.
And if I'm the Avs, I'm furious and fuming. 2 games is not enough.
Once again, he's got to be hurt, doesn't he?
And with that, we will move to the press conference.
The presser.
Non-chicken shit press conference.
Debatable.
The Steve
You know what I
Dangle
liked about
press conference.
the phrasing that you use there is that chicken shit is such a perfect, like, it's just like
it comes out of you.
It was right. It was the right way to describe it.
I never use the term chicken shit unless I see something that's chicken shit.
Yeah. People know what you mean.
I swear at all kinds of things. I never pull out chicken shit.
Do you think after that rant, do you think there'll be any Red Wings fans who go, well, he made the right choice?
Oh, can you imagine if the Red Wings beat the Leafs on Thursday?
Oh. And by the way, awful. Tyler Bertuzzi is sort of...
Great player, man.
So, like, he's sort of like the next Brad Marchand, him and the Chuck brothers, right?
He's exactly the sort of guy that Brian Burke described in that he's...
Truculent?
He's truculent. And there's not a lot of players like him that are jerks like him, and I say jerks endearingly. They're jerks like him, but they can actually put the puck in the net.
Yeah.
And he's one of the best things going for the Red Wings.
Very valuable player.
Extremely valuable player. I know it's all in the heat of the moment, are you actually out of your mind throwing a bare-knuckled punch from
To a guy
the
who's
bench?
bent over the
Yeah,
bench.
being held down by your captain, by your fearless leader.
Is Dylan Larkin really the captain?
Yeah,
That is the quietest captaincy announcement I've ever
we
heard.
talked about it on the show.
Yeah,
Did we?
we did.
God,
Dylan Larkin, who signed to a wicked deal.
sure is.
Wicked deal, but that was some chicken shit bullshit.
Tum 3468 wants to ask the two of you.
Matthews Yager.
Tum.
How does this team look with Mark Hunter as the GM?
Ask Steve Simmons. He's written several articles about it.
Actually?
Yeah, Steve Simmons and Mark Hunter have a relationship. And that's
What
only
kind of relationship?
I mean, alleged relationship. In that Steve Simmons
Where's this
continues.
coming from?
Oh, have you not seen what is it? Sorry, something like 80% of the articles about Mark Hunter in the last year have been by Steve Simmons.
Oh,
Like there's like a and it's interesting that his most recent one came out the week before Nylander's deadline. You know, all the stuff that it's just interesting that he sort of surfaces every once in a while, and it's always in a Steve Simmons piece, and that's fine. Like journalists can have relationships with people, and if Steve Simmons can hit up, and if Steve Simmons, so I'll call him this, and that's what Steve Simmons is. If he can hit up Mark Hunter for a quote or hit him up for an interview or whatever, do it, man. But I think what's interesting is it's almost like it's very friendly writing, and it doesn't matter what Mark Hunter would have done. Because Mark Hunter is not the GM. We have no idea what Mark Hunter's decision-making process was. And, I mean, it's pretty clear from the first two major moves that Kyle Dubas made, Tavares and Nylander, that the Leafs made the right choice. I think there's a pretty good chance that if Mark Hunter's the GM, they don't get Tavares. And I'm not kidding. It was what Kyle Dubas said to John Tavares, and John Tavares said that.
Although Kyle Dubas is the second GM. The third GM to have acquired John Tavares. Mark Hunter was the first
In London.
in London.
Well, maybe there would have been an in there.
No, I don't think so. I think you're right. I think they'd be bigger and older. I mean, still pretty good. But
I don't think they'd be good like this.
I wonder if they'd still have Pollock.
Do you think Mark Hunter has taken a look at how tall John Tavares' mother is? Because
Oh my God, what's that from again?
Mitch Marner's mom, he
Yeah.
said,
Well,
I
he's
took a
tall.
one look at her and she's 6 foot, so I knew Mitch Marner would be a player.
Mitch Marner.
Marner
Mitch
is-
Marner's smaller than his mom.
No, he's not.
Is he 6
No.
feet?
No, yes.
No
he
way.
Is. I made
On
this.
skates?
I made this post on Tumblr. It's going to get deleted soon because it's covered in dicks.
Mitch Marner's
But
taller than I am?
Yes.
You're out of your mind. Really?
I've
Yeah.
met him. I've met him and stood next to him. I'm 5'10" and a half, and he's ever so slightly taller than me. And I can't remember. I know I was wearing shoes. I don't remember if he was. Mitch Marner is confidently 6 feet tall. That's all I was saying.
Okay, fair
And
enough.
that's
And he's
the
going to
reason.
get taller because of his mom.
He's in his 20s now. He's not.
No.
But you know,
He doesn't, he's going to fill out a bit, but he doesn't have one of those builds.
Yeah.
He's
So
got a slender build. That guy's going to be, he's probably going to top out at 190. If he makes
to
it.
answer Tum Tum's question, I think ultimately
Yeah, Tum Tum.
you can never know. But my personal opinion is that Tavares is not a Maple Leaf. That they probably don't have Rasmus Sandin. They probably don't have Sean Druzy. They probably don't have Matt Hollowell.
They definitely don't have Sandin.
I mean, you could tell with the way they drafted in 2017 versus 2018, just the difference in what was asked of Dave Morrison, who is the head of scouting. And actually, Dave Morrison was promoted after Mark Hunter. And I think that the Leafs
Father to John Morrison, actually.
That's right. There you go. And yeah. Okay. And his dad was Doors lead singer Jim Morrison. No, I think it's one of those things that you can't. I think you're right, Steve. I think the Leafs look a little bit bigger. I think they're a little bit slower. I would say that, and I don't think this is necessarily a good thing, but I think that Mark Hunter, his thought process with a hockey team, the guy wasn't as bad as some of the people on the internet say he was when it comes to drafting. He wasn't as good as some of the people in mainstream media say he was when it came to drafting. He was in the middle. He had some great picks. He had some stinkers. I think that team is a lot more what Mike Babcock would have wanted it to be last year. And I think that because Mike Babcock is a guy that likes to evolve his thinking, likes to be challenged. I think he would have been less challenged by Mark Hunter. I think they would have been a little more on the same page. I think that I think Dubas and Babcock have legitimate discussions that are heated, almost like what Ken Reed and I had when he was on the show about players policing themselves.
Yeah, Babcock can be convinced.
Sure.
He's shown that.
But I
it
think,
takes an annoying amount of time, but he can be convinced.
But I think it's better for Babcock and it's better for the team to have a bunch of people who are, I'm one way, you're another, let's find some sort of compromise here. It's sort of the tension that the Beatles had created the best music, and none of them ever made music as good again as they did when they were with the Beatles, or at least that's what people argue.
It's like LMFAO.
Right.
You know?
What were they after the one guy left?
Yeah, no, they needed each other.
They were, after Sky Blue left, what were they?
Is that his name? Yeah.
It was Red Foo
and Sky Blue. Oh, Red Foo left? I thought Red Foo was the one
his
that...
name.
I would have believed Red Foo and Sky Foo.
It was Sky Blue and Red Foo. And Sky Blue was Red Foo's uncle.
It was. That's where I was going.
Yeah.
The one guy was the other guy's uncle.
Yeah, they're just close in age.
Amazing.
And then they split up. Yeah.
Once he shaved his afro, Sky Blue shaved his afro and then booted. Yeah, he left. Anyway.
So, abrupt transition. Mac Hallowell, now that you bring him up, Hallowell, he's second in scoring in the OHL among defensemen. 32 points in 25 games, only behind undraftable crappy guy, 36 points in 25 games, Ryan Merkley.
Wow. Now, Mac Hollowell is 19?
Yeah, he was an overager, and let me throw this out there. He is first in the OHL in goals amongst defensemen with 9, tied with Nicholas Mottinen, a alleged Mark Hunter draft pick who the Leafs let walk.
Now,
so that's an interesting one.
Neither of those players, I mean, you got to kind of take that with a bit of a grain of salt. I mean, it's great for Mac that he's doing great.
Yeah, because it's bullshit. We can't compliment Mark Hunter.
But he's 19 in a league that employs 16-year-olds. So
yeah, he is. It doesn't say his age.
I mean,
well,
it's a
very
huge,
good point.
It's a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, so when they get over 18, their points tend to spike.
Hollowell was born in September '98, so yeah, he'd be 20.
Yeah. So my expectation of him would be that. Now they were talking.
That's the kind of guy you take with a
according to
middle round pick,
Turnip Cannon, who live tweeted the State of the Union with Marley's season ticket holders yesterday. Both Sean Druzy and Mac Hollowell couldn't be brought up to the AHL. The problem is that they've got a bit of a logjam, and they're trying to make sure that Rasmus Sandin gets his ice time. And he's been playing so well. He's earned it. There are people who, and I wonder if it's just a shiny new toy thing, but there are people who are saying, oh, he's already ahead of Liljegren in the development. And I just wonder, it's like, he's the new guy. He's had a hot start. But, like, is he?
Yeah, but here's why I think that's happening. Everyone's expectations of Liljegren were so ridiculous.
Chris Pronger!
As if the Leafs were geniuses. And listen, I thought he's a great pick. I'm happy that they picked him. But the 16 teams that passed on him are idiots.
All of them.
Stupid. Big idiots. Only Dubas, armed with nothing but an abacus and a piece of checkered paper, could have made that pick. And then Sandin comes in, and it was crazy because he's the first draft pick of Dubas as a GM, and he does the typical NHL GM thing and drafts a guy from the team he's from. And a lot of people were disappointed. And there was Joe Veleno who was available. I think there were a couple guys available who people wanted. So they're like, what the Sandin? That pick sucks. So their expectations for Liljegren are sky high.
That was great, actually. I remember after that pick came in, because they traded down a couple spots,
This
too.
is shit.
Well, I can't believe it.
Yeah, well, and after Dubas goes, I'm not the trade down guy, trades down immediately.
But I believe it got them SDA's pick, didn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, the expectations for Liljegren were so high. The only possible outcome is disappointment. And then Sandin was so low, and then he comes in, and this guy's pretty good. Mm-hmm. So
By the way, I want to shout out everybody who knew Liljegren would go back to Rogel and knew that Sandin would go back to the Greyhounds. And I called it both. I said, on both. Makes more sense to keep him. And they're like, how will they find ice time? They have Leo Laverty. And I'm like, well,
Vincent.
Vincent Laverde. Well, Vincent Laverde's going to sit because Rasmus Sandin needs to play.
And Laverde's one of those
He's
guys
good.
who's a great
He's also
AHL player, right?
Yes, 100%.
So this is going to be interesting, and there's actually incentive to send them to the World Juniors because it's free ice time. And you're able to, like, I don't even think Jordan Subban's getting in games.
Yeah.
And they were able to just get rid of Andrew Nielsen. They have defense. The issue is
goaltending.
Defense. Well, it's last year the defense I think was maybe a bit overrated by some because the goalies bailed them out of every situation, and this year they're getting none of it.
Jesse, next question.
Final thing. I just wanted to shout out one person from our YouTube channel. One comment from our YouTube or last video.
You read the comments?
I skimmed for some content, and I found some content. The
So
best
not just shit
comment.
posts. All right.
This episode is called Chicken Shit.
The best comment. No, it's not.
It should just be the emojis, chicken and the poo. Can we do that?
I'll allow it. No, you can't do that.
It'll break the system. The best comment of the week goes to Carl Moss, who had a problem with us comparing 40-watt light bulbs to 60-watt light bulbs.
Is that what we did, Carl?
I think is the peak of somebody having a problem with us.
Okay, Jesse's in full-blown Jesse meltdown. Do you need me to read
reach
it?
the point
Do you need me to
where
describe?
light bulbs.
20 watt difference. It's not even 40 to 100. It's 40 to 60.
Carl Moss. Wow, and he time-stamped it. It starts with a timestamp.
When did we talk about that?
So everyone knows
I don't even remember
exactly the exact time our shitheadery begins. From
Did
Carl
you say,
Moss.
hey, shitheads?
He should have. Carl Moss, 1 hour, 21 minutes, and 40 shitheaded seconds into our last podcast.
40 chickens shit seconds. Chicken shit comment, boys.
Comparing 40-watt light bulbs, comparing 40-watt bulbs to 60-watt bulbs and then rounding up to exaggerate your point? Question mark?
Oh my god.
4,000 joules would power a 60-watt bulb for 67 seconds. But then again, I question your math. Your math!
You question our math only now?
On the 4,000
new?
joules too. Carl, do you think a guy who last took math in grade 11 and passed it mixed with a 57
I had a 60.
saw a hit in hockey, saw a Dustin Buffalo Jamie Alexiak hit, and thought that was about 4,000 joules? Do you honestly think? You think this rocket surgeon over here?
3% better than Steve in mixed math.
appliances? You think Jesse over here?
Jesse, when did you last take math?
Oh God, grade 10.
Grade 10? You could
Yeah.
drop it after grade 10?
Wait, no.
That's science. You drop after grade,
Yeah,
grade
yeah.
11. Then whenever you could last take it.
Grade 11.
I took the worst kind of math in
I
grade
was like,
11. It was
biology.
terrible.
See
Which
you
is what
later.
I should have done. College level math. I should have taken.
Which
Jesus
is
Christ.
what I should have taken too.
Do you think this band of idiots, take it up with Heart of Lad, I don't know where he got his numbers from. I just trusted it because I'm like, you know what? He's smarter than me. I just love the indignance comparing 40-watt bulbs to 60-watt
That's
bulbs
my favorite
and then
part.
rounding up to exaggerate your point.
The thing is to us, it's just
You
a number.
bunch of stupid idiots. Sorry.
The thing is, to us, it's just a
Carl,
bunch of numbers.
We love you. Thank you for listening.
All I know about watts is that I need to match them properly with the socket and the light bulb. That's all I really know. That's all I really care. It doesn't matter. But here's
And I always walk into the middle of an open field and hold a 9-iron into the air during a thunderstorm.
Did you
Dude,
hold on? Did you see the Slate article yesterday?
Oh, tell me about
So
that
George
damn
George
Slate
H.W. Bush died.
Yes.
And they showed a picture of his funeral of his casket. And the service dog that he
dog.
had
I saw the
was
dog.
lying down in front of his adorable
Sully.
and whatever. And they said, Sully. They called it his lifelong companion, Sully. And so Slate goes in and goes, actually, it's not his lifelong companion because A, dogs don't live that long, and B, that dog had only been his service dog, which is a working dog, not a pet, for 6 months. So don't believe it. Don't waste your emotional energy on that. And people were like, who the fuck shit in your cornflakes, man?
Listen.
What the hell is that?
Listen. of all the things said around that, there were hills worth dying on.
That was not the one. That ain't it,
What's
Chief.
the matter with you, Chief? Is this it? No. Guys.
Can I show you a picture of the
Yes,
person
you can.
who wrote the Slate article?
Oh, no.
Her name is Ruth Graham.
Was she writing it joking though?
Oh, sorry, wrong person.
Oh, not Ruth Graham.
I was about to say, that person writes for Slate? Jesse.
Oh, no. Wrong Ruth Graham.
Okay.
Ah, damn
You
it.
dropped out of math. You can't Google.
Can't even find the right Ruth. What can you do?
I bet if it was a meme, you would know the calculation.
All I'm saying is this.
You trio of...
Probably.
All I'm saying is this. Was it written? I just want to know if it was. Sometimes you can't tell. Like extreme sarcasm on the internet's hard to pick up on. I wonder if that was a sarcastic article.
Does Slate have sarcastic articles?
I don't know. Are they always serious? I don't read them much. But
I think that's all that needs to be said, really.
all right.
Chicken shit website. Sorry, now I'm on a roll. Now I don't want to use it sparingly anymore. I like it. Chicken shit. It's fun. Where did that come from? Who was the first person to associate chicken shit with cowardly?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I guess chicken shit in general is smaller than other poo, so it's probably
Yeah. Why not? Rabbit shit is just you're just scared of your own shadow.
yeah. Something about chicken. You're already a chicken,
Yeah.
and now it's the shit from the chicken.
Now you're chicken shit.
Yeah.
You're an
Whoa.
egg.
You're not even the chicken, which is already a coward.
Maybe they're trying to say you're young because like an egg and you got a lot to learn.
I don't think so.
Or that you
Maybe you're bad fertilizer. I don't think chicken shit's
Scottish
good fertilizer.
people boil you in water and eat you with a spoon.
Wow. Okay. Let's
with little pieces of bread.
let's put this away.
Soldiers, they
let's
call
put this in the cupboard and call it a day. Walk away from it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's put this in the cupboard by light of a 40-watt or 60-watt bulb. Doesn't matter. They're the same thing. They're the same thing. Exact same thing. I always say.
You know what I like to do? When I talk about my wattage light bulbs, I like to round up to make my point work better.
Yeah.
So.
To fool you. Fooled you, didn't I? And I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for Karl Moss.
By the way, what do you think of Paul Kim?
I think he's squatting on the name Karl Moss, and he just left a comment on our YouTube video. And he would know about the difference between joules and 40 watt and 60 watt because he's got that Ivy League education.
That's right.
Karl Moss.
We'll see you later in the week, kid.
Follow the guys on Twitter at Steve_Dangle, at Adam WYLDE, and at Jesse Blake.
The Steve Dangle Podcast. Brought to you by Panago Pizza. Order at panago.com and stuff your face with deliciousness.